This is the gospel according to the IRS, Breaking Points and Church Financial Updates. And now, here's the authority, Dr. Michael Chitwood and Breaking Points.
This is Michael Chitwood. Welcome to Breaking Points, and I have a powerful story to tell you today with some information that will change your life. I believe that. And right now, as we begin the program, I want you to have the confidence level that you can face it, fix it, and forget it. Would you write that down? I just feel like that the Holy Spirit might have someone to write that down. I know that your church books aren't right, maybe. I know that you've got some things in there that's wrong, but it's not what you've done wrong that bothers me. What I want you to do is just face it, write it down, fix it, and forget it. Say that with me. Face it, fix it, and forget it. And once we get it all cleaned up, you know what? God's going to take you to a new level. Today I want to read you something from our Success in Life magazine. For our premier partners who are receiving this, you can follow me if you want to. Listen to this. New York pastor accused of making too much money. False accusations leveled against this church almost tore this church down. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why that I bring that to your attention is because of this. You do understand, and I was reading that from our Success in Life magazine, but you do understand that church gift, write this down, number 2, church gift is a powerful source, an innovative tool to help you monitor what's going on in your church. Can I give you a true story that really happened in Gaffney, South Carolina? It happened here too. In a moment I'll tell you the conclusion of the New York pastor. But do you understand there's a pastor in Gaffney, South Carolina that had church gift in his ministry, a powerful, innovative tool that you must have. You must have it now. In the day that we live, you have to have church gift. We record over 100,000 envelopes a day here in our ministry, and we thank God for giving us this ministry that He's placed into our hands. We thank you for that today, Father. But this pastor in Gaffney, South Carolina was a good man. He loved the Lord with all of his heart, and one day he found out his minister of music. Boy, ministers of music, they can be different. Musicians can be different people. They kind of like to sleep all day and kind of work all night, and that's good because we need good, anointed musicians in the kingdom for God, don't we? But this minister of music had done some bad things. He had been dating and seeing a lot of the women in the choir, if you know what I mean. The pastor found out about it. He was doing things to choir members that was not what the pastor wanted done in that church. And so when the pastor found out about it, he fires the minister of music. After talking to him, and the minister of music confessed of what he was doing, he decided to set the minister of music down. And when he did, he had a large donor back there that was given about $40,000 a year, tithes and offerings. Now, you can say what you want to, but that's a pretty powerful donor. You don't want to lose a member like that, do you? $40,000 a year. He was a doctor. He was a dentist in Gaffney, South Carolina. And so what happened to that doctor is that he got upset because he liked that praise and worship leader, the music director or the minister of music. We call them praise and worship leaders today. That's great because it's a powerful form of praise and worship. Don't forget the worship part. Sometimes we concentrate more on the praise than we do the worship part. But he set this praise and worship leader down. And this doctor, this good dentist, decided that he was upset, and so he started withholding his tithes and offerings. 4 weeks had gone by. The pastor was looking at church gift. He discovered that the doctor had not paid his tithes and offering. Picked up the phone and called him and said, "Hey, can I take you and your wife out to dinner tonight with my wife?" They get out to dinner, and see, that member was just waiting to talk to the pastor, just waiting to get his attention. Do you understand why that doctor was withholding his tithe? It wasn't because he was trying to hurt the church, but he was trying to get the pastor's attention. Did he get it? He sure did. You take $40,000 a year annualized out of your budget, it can't hurt you. Small church, Gaffney, South Carolina, Word of Faith Church up there. He got the pastor's attention. They go out to dinner. He said, "Well, how's everything going, doctor?" "Everything's going great." "How's your practice doing?" "Practice is going great, bigger than it's ever been before." And then finally the subject came up. "Well, doctor, I've been noticing that you haven't been paying your tithes and offerings to the church. And I'm not trying to get on you about it, but I'm just concerned if if your practice was in trouble. No, my practice is not in trouble. I've in my tithes and offering because I'm upset with you. You're upset with me? Why are you upset with me? How many of you know people sometimes will go to the hospital and get mad because you didn't come visit them, and you ask them, well, did you tell anybody you was going to the hospital? No, I didn't tell anybody. Well, how do you expect us to come visit you if you don't tell somebody you're going to have surgery or you're going into the hospital? So the doctor told him, said, well, I'm upset with you. What are you upset with me about? Well, you set the praise and worship leader down, and he was the best. He could take me into the presence of God better than anybody. And you set him down, and I'm upset with you. He let him go on for a few minutes, and then the good pastor said, well, can I tell you why that I was having to set the minister of music down, the praise and worship leader down? Yeah, please tell me, but it's not going to change my mind about you. I'm upset with you. He said, I put the pastor, the praise and worship leader down because he was dating and going through every person in the choir. The good doctor said, I did not know that. Well, you're not supposed to know it because I'm the pastor. You're not the pastor. The next week, the good doctor comes back to the church, and guess what he did? He catches up all of his back tithes and offerings, and he adds 10% to that. In fact, he gave more than that. He gave an extra offering to the church because he was grateful that the pastor was watching over that situation. You know, people sometimes withhold their tithes and offerings to get your attention, but you don't want to lose them. You've got too much invested into them. So why don't you try to make sure you minister to them? Some people have real financial problems that you need to minister to. You're the shepherd of the house. Aren't you supposed to know your sheep? Aren't you supposed to watch out for them, govern for them, watch out for their souls? Yes, you are. The next week, the good doctor came back, brought all of his back tithes and offerings in, gave an offering, added 10% additional to it, added additional offering to it. Guess what impacted the doctor more than anything? The very next session, his young daughter, Jessica, was going into the choir, the adult choir. Ladies and gentlemen, church gift will monitor who's giving and who's not giving. You have two types of givers in the church. You have paid staff givers and you have non-paid staff givers. I don't know if you're like me, but I believe this. If you're working in the church in any capacity and you have a job where you're earning money, you should be paying your tithes and offerings into that church. Not giving it to somebody else, but bringing it into that church. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to realize something today, that if you are a volunteer person in the choir and you have a job, you're supposed to be bringing your tithes and offerings into the storehouse. And pastor, you should be watching out for those non-tithers because you don't want to mix a non-tither with a tither. I want you to realize that Church Gift is a program that you need in your church now. Get those envelopes out of your house. Do you remember the story about the New York pastor that I read to you a few minutes ago? A lady reported to the congregation that he was making $400,000 a year years ago because he gave $40,000 a year tithes and offerings. What she didn't know is he was paying his tithe and huge offerings. It circulated through the church and it just about destroyed that church. I want to submit this to you today, respectfully. Watch out who's giving. Keep a record of how much they're giving and make sure that your elders, deacons, and leadership are paying their tithes and offerings into your church so that they can be good stewards of what God has placed into their hands. Church gift, you need it. Until next time, this is Michael Chitwood, and I'll see you tomorrow on Breaking Points.
Breaking Points gives you the latest IRS updates and tax law. Pastor, if the IRS came to your church today, what would you say? If you really want your house of worship in order, call 1-800-345-9117.